Imagine a timeline where the biological category of men just never evolved.
Which is a pretty massive premise right out of the gate.
It is, yeah. And I want to be really specific about the parameters here for you listening, because we aren't talking about some post-apocalyptic world where all the men died off from a virus or something.
Right, or like a political separatist movement.
Exactly, not an Amazonian island scenario.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about a reality where the historical, the social, and the biological concept of a male human being simply never existed.
It's essentially a radical reset of the human operating system. I mean, if you remove that binary, that fundamental A versus B architecture that defines so much of our own biology and culture, how does society build itself?
How does power work, right? How does love work?
Exactly.
And that is the exact question at the heart of the text we're breaking down in our deep dive today. It's titled, The World Without Men, a structural myth of women and futanari.
And I think we should clarify something right away.
Yeah, go.
For anyone who might see that title and immediately think we're reviewing a fantasy novel or diving into some niche internet fiction, we need to put the brakes on.
Definitely.
Because we are treating this source material strictly as a study in biological architecture.
Right, we're looking at it as an analytical framework.
Think of this session less as a story review and more as, well, an anthropological study into a civilization that doesn't exist, but whose rules can tell us a lot about our own.
The author actually frames this as a structural myth.
Which is a great term. The mission here is to explore a world where the male versus female binary is just completely wiped off the board.
And replaced by variations within womanhood.
Precisely. Variations of the same foundational biology.
So let's lay the groundwork for that. In this world, the source material states there is no missing half. That really struck me as the core thesis right out of the gate.
Oh, it is the essential starting point. Because in our reality, so much of our psychology, our romance, even our religion is built around the idea of the other.
Right, opposites attracting.
Yeah.
Yin and yang.
Sun and moon, yeah. But in the text we're analyzing, everyone is female. But, and this is the critical twist, biology isn't uniform.
They're two distinct biological categories.
Yes. The text defines them as women and futanari.
And we really need to parse this carefully because futanari is a term that comes with a lot of baggage in our world.
It really does.
It's usually associated with very specific genres of adult animation or internet culture.
Yeah, but the text is using it in a much more clinical, structural way here.
Yeah.
It explicitly strips away all the fetishization and just looks at the mechanics.
So how does it define them?
Well, in this structural myth, women are defined by a singular reproductive configuration, which is what we would recognize as standard female biology.
Okay.
But futanari are defined as female-bodied beings with dual generative capacity.
Okay, stop there for a second.
Okay.
Because the immediate knee-jerk reaction, and I think it's a completely reasonable one for you listening to have, is to say, oh, I get it. The futanari are just the men of this world. They've just swapped the label.
And the text completely anticipates that reaction. It rejects it pretty aggressively, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't let you fall back on that binary.
Not at all. It argues that futanari are not male, and they are absolutely not half male. The specific phrase the author uses is expanded female architecture.
Expanded female architecture. I really like that.
It's a very intentional phrasing.
It implies we aren't mixing two different species. We're looking at a single species where one variation has, I don't know, extra rooms added to the house.
That's a great way to visualize it, yeah. It's not A plus B, it's A plus more A. And to really understand this, we have to look at how the source uses the concept of polarity.
Right, it breaks polarity down into two types.
Yes. It defines women as representing focused polarity and futanari as representing integrated polarity.
Break that down for us. What does integrated polarity actually look like in a living, breathing person in this framework?
So imagine a battery or an electrical circuit. In a binary world, our world, you might have one person holding the positive charge and another holding the negative charge.
And they need to touch to create a spark.
Exactly. That's a dependency model. But in this text, the futanari possess what's called a dual circuitry. They carry the positive and the negative, the assertive and the receptive, within a single closed loop.
So they are biologically self-contained in a way that standard biology isn't.
Energetically speaking, yes. Because they have that dual generative capacity within a female body, they don't need to reach out to find an opposing energy to complete a biological function.
They already have it.
Right. They carry the dynamic of assertiveness and receptivity within their own physical structure.
Which completely changes the psychological landscape. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have a subset of the population that is internally complete in that way, you just don't have the battle of the sexes.
Exactly. There is no war because there is no other to fight.
Right.
A woman looks at a futanari and doesn't see a mysterious alien opposite. She sees a variation of herself. The text really emphasizes that no one is considered a missing half.
Which is such a heavy concept. No missing halves. It totally flips the script on how we talk about soulmates or finding the one.
It does.
We're so used to that Jerry Maguire narrative, you complete me, but this text is saying, no, you're already complete. Now what?
And that's exactly where we move from biology to sociology in the analysis. If biology dictates destiny, then a biology of completeness creates a completely different history.
Right, which leads into that fascinating concept the text introduces, the vacuum of history.
The vacuum of history.
It sounds like a sci-fi trope, honestly, but it's actually about what is missing from the history books in this world.
Think about it. If you remove the biological category of men from the entire timeline, you completely delete the history of patriarchal lineage.
No kings passing power to sons.
No dowries based on trading women like property between men. No firstborn son inheritance laws.
No history of women being legally defined as lesser than or as the property of someone else.
Precisely. There is no gender war because there was literally never an opposing gender to war against. So when the source analyzes power in this world, it notes that hierarchy doesn't form around who can physically dominate the other in a combat sense.
The brute force metric of leadership is just gone.
It doesn't exist.
So if power isn't about who can swing the biggest sword or who has the right father, what is it? Because obviously a society still needs structure. It still needs leaders.
Oh, absolutely. And the text has a very specific list of 4 pillars that organize society in this myth.
Right. It lists them as internal confidence, emotional stability, generative capacity, and presence.
Presence.
That one really stood out to me. It sounds so, I don't know, quiet.
It is quiet. The text deliberately contrasts performative power, which is that loud, chest-thumping, look-at-me power we are so used to, with gravitational power. It argues that in this world, authority comes purely from internal alignment.
Let's dig into that gravitational concept for a second, because the source says futanari are often perceived as dominant in this society.
They are.
But you're saying it's not because there's a law that says, hey, the futanari are in charge now.
Correct. It's not a caste system. It's more like physics. Because futanari have that integrated polarity, that internal closed loop we talked about earlier, they emit a sense of massive stability.
They embody balance.
Yes, and human beings, regardless of gender or biology, are naturally drawn to stability.
It's like standing next to a mountain versus standing next to a kite in the wind. You naturally orient yourself around the mountain.
That is the perfect analogy. The text calls this the gravitational effect. Their structural completeness makes them anchors in the social fabric.
Yeah.
And this is a massive nuance the text insists on, so we have to get this right. This dominance is a tendency, not a rule.
Right, because if it were a strict rule, we'd just be reinventing patriarchy with a different coat of paint. Like, the futanari are the new men, do what they say.
Exactly, and the text explicitly avoids that trap. It clearly says dominance is not exclusive to futanari, and submission is not exclusive to women.
A woman can be an anchor.
And a futanari can be unstable, but the architecture gives the futanari a biological head start on that specific kind of grounded presence.
So if the futanari are the anchors, how does the text describe the women? I think the phrase was relationally oriented.
Yes, relationally oriented. And in our world, calling someone relationally oriented can sometimes sound like a nice way of saying they're dependent or weak.
Yeah, it has a negative connotation sometimes.
But this source frames it as a superpower of precision and refinement.
Go on. How is being relationally oriented a superpower?
Well, think about the circuitry again. If the futanari is the integrated polarity, the closed loop, the woman is focused polarity, while the futanari provide the gravitational center, the women provide the web.
Ah, I see.
They form the networks, the bonds, the detailed social structures that actually hold civilization together. If the futanari is the battery, the woman is the laser. Highly directed, highly potent energy.
It reframes the roles entirely. It's not strong versus weak. It's static versus dynamic, or center versus web.
It's a study in different physics. And this physics is what dictates how attraction works in this world. The text claims that attraction is gravitational, not ideological.
Meaning, You don't date someone because society says category A must marry category B.
Right, you aren't dating to merge lands or secure a bloodline.
You date because you feel a pull. The dynamic described is that women are often drawn to Futanari because they are seeking that centered presence. They are seeking energetic grounding.
Seeking shelter in a storm, basically. You go to the thing that feels solid.
But the text also explores the variations, right? It's not a monolith.
Definitely not. Futanari can desire other Futanari, which creates a very different dynamic, almost like two stars orbiting each other. And women can bond deeply with other women.
But the archetypal attraction in this myth is the focused polarity seeking the integrated polarity.
That's the primary gravitational pull the author outlines, yes.
I really want to spend a minute on the vocabulary the source uses here because it does some heavy lifting to rehabilitate words that I think most of us recoil from today.
You're talking about submission and needy.
Specifically, those two, yes. Because in our current cultural lexicon, submission implies being conquered. It implies you lost the fight.
It implies a power imbalance where someone is being suppressed.
And needy. If you call a partner needy, that's usually the step right before a breakup. Don't be so needy as an insult. It means you're broken, you have a hole you're trying to fill.
But this text totally reframes submission. It calls it devotional orientation.
Devotional orientation.
Right. It's not about giving up power. It's about actively channeling your focused energy toward a connection. It's an investment strategy, essentially. You are choosing to invest your energy in a person who provides stability.
It's active, not passive. I think that's the key distinction. You aren't being forced down. You're choosing where to pour your energy.
Exactly. And needy. How do you make needy sound dignified?
I'm dying to know.
The text frames it as heightened attachment motivation.
Heightened attachment motivation.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like something I'd pay a therapist a lot of money to tell me.
It really does. But think about the shift in perspective there. It strips the shame away entirely.
It does.
It acknowledges that the desire for connection, the desire to attach to something stable, is a biological drive, not a character flaw. In a world without the binary gender war, admitting you want to attach to someone isn't seen as losing. It's just a mode of being.
That's actually deeply validating. It suggests that feeling needy is just your biology saying, hey, I have a lot of connection energy and I need a secure place to plug it in.
Exactly. It's seeking a socket. It's functional. And on the flip side of that, they redefine dominance as well.
Yeah.
In this world, dominance isn't about control or cruelty.
It's that presence again.
Yes. The text calls it non-performative presence. We are so used to dominance being loud, we think of the CEO shouting in the boardroom or the alpha male posturing at the bar.
Right, taking up all the space in the room.
But here, because the power comes from that internal biological integration, it doesn't need to perform. It just is. If you are truly stable, you don't need to shout about it. You just stand there, and people feel safer standing next to you than away from you.
So we have a society where power is quiet stability and submission is active devotion. It shifts the focus completely from who is in charge to how do our energies fit together.
Which naturally leads us to the psychological landscape of this myth. The source talks about masculine and feminine not as people, but as energies.
This is the part that I think really applies most to our actual lives. Because even though biological men do not exist in this thought experiment, the concepts of masculine and feminine still exist.
Right. The text posits that masculine is the vector of assertiveness and provision. Feminine is the vector of receptivity and refinement. And every being, whether woman or Futanari, contains both.
So the Futanari might visibly embody the dual circuitry in their biology, but the women also have access to that full spectrum of energy.
That is the linchpin of the whole argument. The text explicitly says masculine and feminine exist as energetic movements, not as biological destinies.
That is such a liberating concept, because in a binary world, we often get trapped thinking, I was born in this body, therefore I must act this way, or I am a man, so I can't be receptive, or I am a woman, so I can't be assertive.
Here, the architecture might predispose you to certain tendencies, like the Futanari being prone to dominance due to their stability, but it doesn't lock you in. You are playing with a full deck of cards, regardless of your body type.
And because of that, we circle back to that core thesis we started with today. This is a world not built on lack.
That is the ultimate headline. The world without men is a world without structural lack.
It's almost hard to even wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
So much of our storytelling, our poetry, our songs, it's all about the search for the missing piece.
The source material argues that because everyone is female, everyone is fundamentally of the same stuff. There's a variation in the architecture, how the house is built, but the foundation is identical. So Power emerges from integration, and devotion emerges from attachment, but no one is looking at their partner thinking, you have the half of the soul that I was denied by God.
You aren't trying to fix yourself through another person, you're just connecting.
It suggests a psychology of abundance rather than scarcity. If you aren't missing anything, your relationships become about what you can build together rather than what you need to take from the other person to feel whole.
It really forces us to look at our own world and ask how much of our conflict, our divorces, our political gender wars comes from that deep-seated belief that we are incomplete.
And that we are enemies. The us versus them mentality is just baked into the binary. But this source asks us to think in terms of variation. It's not A versus B, it's type A1 and type A2.
Because they are variations of the exact same thing, they can integrate without friction.
Exactly. It completely removes the alien nature of the partner. If there is no them, there is only us. And that changes how you treat people. It shifts power from being a tool of control over the other to being a tool of stability for the whole.
That is a really powerful place to land. So we've walked through the biological architecture, this idea of focused versus integrated polarity. We've seen the social dynamics, which is power without patriarchy. We've looked at attraction being gravity over ideology. And we've explored the psychological landscape of energy versus destiny.
It is a remarkably comprehensive system. And while it is a myth, it is a thought experiment, it offers a really sharp critique of our own reliance on conflict.
It challenges the very idea that you need opposites to make a whole.
For me, the most fascinating element remains that shift in leadership. Moving from a hierarchy based on history or faith to power based on emotional stability and presence. It's a definition of leadership that I think we could absolutely apply right now, today.
Absolutely. You don't need to be a futanari or live in a mythical single-gender world to strive for non-performative presence.
No, you certainly don't. That is a universal goal, just being the person who doesn't tip over.
Well, this has been a serious deep dive into a very unique text. The world without men turns out to be less about the absence of men and much more about the presence of a different kind of wholeness.
It is ultimately a story about what happens when you stop defining yourself by what you lack.
I want to leave you with a thought to mull over for you listening, something that comes directly out of this discussion of energetic movements. The text says masculine and feminine are just energies, not destinies.
Right.
So here is the question for you to explore on your own. If we view masculine and feminine strictly as energies that anyone can hold, regardless of biology, rather than scripts you were handed at birth, how does that change your definition of what it means to be a complete person right now?
That is the big question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.